Carthage had been at peace for less than a year after the Treaty of Lutatius, but they were soon thrust into another conflict which could see the Punic Empire beheaded as the great city fought desperately to retain its hold on Africa. Caused by constant Carthaginian mismanagement and short-sightedness, the Mercenary War, also known as the Truceless War, was completely unnecessary. With the conclusion of the war, Hamilcar Barca left Sicily and put his subordinate in charge of organising the veteran mercenaries of Hamilcar's force of 20,000 into smaller squads. These squads were then sent one at a time to Africa for their payment for several years' work. In a perfect world, these troops would have gotten their money and all would have been well. But their masters in Carthage had other plans. They waited for all the troops to arrive before paying them, and then believed that they could convince the mercenaries to decrease their pay, due mostly to the financial situation Carthage was found itself in. As we all know, not paying your mercenaries is a good way to cause trouble, and this decision went about as well as anyone could have expected it to. The mercenaries felt betrayed, and it was easy to see why. Hamilcar had made extravagant promises in Sicily, and he had left them for the empty promises of the Carthaginian Senate. The mercenaries were soon moved to a town called Sicca and left with no leader to control them. The leaders in Carthage soon woke up to the massive danger they were in, with 20,000 murder machines, and they agreed to the full sum. But they had crossed the line of no return, and the mercenaries demanded ever-increasing amounts of money. The same subordinate who had initially organised them in Sicily was brought in to defuse the situation, but even this failed. The hostility soon boiled over, and the mercenary war began. Like most Carthaginian armies, this one contained a mix of Libyans, Iberians, Balearics, Greeks and Gauls, and it soon splintered across these ethnic lines. The largest of these splinters was by far the Libyans, and it would be the Libyans who ignited a full-scale revolt against Carthage among their brethren in Africa. Punic rule over the Libyans had always been uneasy, but the increased taxation required to fund the Punic War stretched these relations to the breaking point, and soon much of Africa was in revolt. They were also joined by opportunistic Numidian princes. Now a huge army was bearing down upon Carthage, and soon the towns of Utica and Hippo were put under siege. Carthage had less resources to mobilise due to the loss of these African territories, and the force they were able to put together was heavily outnumbered by the rebel forces. The Carthaginians were initially led by Hamilcar and Hanno, but the latter was eventually fired by a vote of the army. Hamilcar displayed his superior skills as a general magnificently throughout the war, and consistently outmanoeuvred the rebel forces, while also making deft use of diplomacy to turn rebel allies back to the Carthaginian side, like when a Numidian prince defected in return for marriage to Hamilcar's daughter. By the time 237 rolled around, Carthage had seen 4 years of bloody and brutal fighting, but the rebellion was totally destroyed, and its leaders crucified. Throughout the course of the conflict, the Romans were utterly honourable in their conduct, banning trade with rebel forces while encouraging it with Carthage, and engaging in surprisingly warm diplomatic conversation. When Sardinia rebelled in 240 and slaughtered its Carthaginian garrison, it made overtures for Rome for protection, but these were refused. Eventually the mutinous soldiers were expelled from Sardinia by the locals and fled to Rome, where they once again begged the Senate to attack the island. It is here where the utterly honourable talk ends. We don't know why they decided upon such a shameless course of action, especially after their initial refusal to do so, but an expedition was dispatched to Sardinia and the island was quickly captured. Rome forced Carthage to accept this second humiliation, along with a further 1,200 talent indemnity. The shame of this loss fueled much Carthaginian indignation towards Rome, which would be a large factor in the start of the Second Punic War. But that is a story for another day.